Now you can talk. Listen to me. And then mute it.
Probably have it was 10 years ago.
Can you hear me? Appreciate it more. Better. All right. I think it's time. It's 1 o'clock. I want to welcome you to ESCOM Spotlight Series. And this spotlight is very interesting. I'm Gary Gonser, the president of ESCOM, and I want to welcome you. So here we have today Steve Kershik. Now, he has worked nearly 3 decades helping people and organizations communicate clearly. And you know how hard that can be. And to navigate change, which is even harder. In recent years, his focus has shifted to more personal and a universal question. How do we live well in the third of life? When we retire, what do we do to maintain our health, our well-being, our engagement, and our longevity after this? Steve has written a new book, which is, I'm sorry to say, not out yet. He told me it's going to be out this fall. So stay tuned. We will certainly announce it. So the book is called The Third Reason. And it's a book about purpose, belonging, reinvention, and mindful planning for the years after career and after retirement. So Steve will look at the issues and the reinvention of warmth, curiosity, humor, and a researcher's mindset, finding new things in our world. So before I bring Steve up here, I have some announcements for ESCOM. We have new brochures. They're over at the table. Leonard Weingarten is manning our marketing table as usual. We've been doing this for 4 years, and it has really paid off. So we have new brochures. We have another author coming on May the 8th. This person is Nathan Price. He works at the Buck Institute, and he researches using AI with wellness. So he integrates the two on a very positive way. He will have the book with him on May the 8th, right here. So mark your calendars. And then we do free computer workshops. You may know that. On April the 23rd, the end of this month, we're doing protecting our personal data online. It's kind of a standard course, but we need introductions to all the things going on against us online. And that's what this workshop does. So this will be over at the Corte Madera Library at 2 o'clock on April the 23rd. You will get emails to announce it. So that's enough for marketing. Let's get into our program. So help me welcome Steve Kershik.
Thank you for having me here. I remember going to college for kids here in last century. We certainly had an upgrade in the facility. When I turned 55, something shifted. I looked up from the work, the calendar, the to-do list. Can you hear me okay? I used to always be the AV boy in school, so I'm tempted to jump in and manage. Ready? It was 55 when I looked up and I realized there's another era coming in my life. And I started asking deep questions of myself, like, what do I actually know about how to live it? So I did what any reasonable person does. I did some research. I went online, in bookstores, in conversation with people who had gotten there before me. And here's what I found when I went looking. Inspirational platitudes. 60 is the new 40. Okay, very helpful. Thank you very much. Articles about reinventing myself. And we'll come back to that word. I have some opinions on reinvention. And of course, the practical stuff, save for retirement, look into your healthcare options, maybe think about long-term health insurance, all important, genuinely important. But what about the rest of life? What about our days? What do we actually do with them when the structure disappears or changes? What about our relationships, which have a way of changing shape at this stage, whether we're paying attention or not? What about legacy? Not the grand monument version of legacy, but the smaller, honest questions about what we want to have meant in our lives. What about the possibility of aging with real mindful intention rather than just drifting into what might be one of the most meaningful eras of our lives? And I couldn't find that conversation anywhere. So I started having it. And that eventually became a podcast called Your Third Third, and a Substack weekly newsletter, and the book that Gary mentioned, which I'll tell you a little bit more about at the end. But here's what I believe. based on a lot of research and conversations with over 50 people as I was writing this book. And that's what this whole conversation is built on. I'm 59 now, and I like to call this stage my third. And my honest belief, it's really the only era of our lives where you finally get to choose the destination instead of following the routes that others taught you or chose for you to strive for. Now, before we go any further, this is not a wellness seminar. I'm not going to be using meditation or showing you pictures of sunsets. If I do that, you have my permission to walk out or close the Zoom. I believe in practical solutions, real frameworks that you can try to see how they fit for your life. And I'm building a community of people who are also trying to enter this era of life with intention and purpose. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm working on it and I'm sharing what I learn as I go. This is a real conversation about what happens when the striving in life stops. And the question becomes, okay, now what? And by the way, some of you asked some remarkable questions as you registered. You had the option to submit some questions about finding partners, about building community at this age, caregiving while still having a life of your own, about whether intention always has to mean being productive. That question resonates. So let's have those conversations. So I notice people sort of reacting to this idea of your third with a little bit of curiosity. So why do I like dividing these periods of our lives into thirds like this? But here's what I'm thinking about. The first third of our lives is formation, learning, growing, figuring out who you are. The second third is building. The career, the family, the identity, the decades of proving yourself to people who may or may not have been paying attention. The third, that question mark there, that's what comes after the strive. If you retire at 65 and you live to 90, that's 25 years, a quarter of a century. And our cultural plan for it is don't work anymore. That's it. The word retirement literally means to withdraw. You gave 40 years, and the reward is a word that quite literally means leave the room. As a marketer, we didn't try very hard on the naming of this era of life. Some people call it the encore, the golden years, active aging. What matters is the language that you use inside your own head shapes how you live it. And if you're calling it retirement, you might be subtly assuming it's about less, about winding down. It harkens back to a time generations ago where you worked at the plant, you got your pension, and then you died 5 years later. I invite you to try on a different language. See what fits. What I care about is that whatever you call it, it signals continuation, not withdrawal, not decline. And here's what I didn't feel prepared for when I began this research. This stage doesn't come with a cultural script. Every other major transition does. Graduation, wedding, first house, first kid. There's a playbook. Advice from people who came before. In this stage, you're kind of making it up. While you're also grieving, whether we admit it or not. I'll talk more about that word in a bit. Gary said, I spent decades in corporate marketing, helping companies navigate change and telling better stories. But I started noticing something in people around me, smart, accomplished people that were entering this stage of life and feeling unmoored, not depressed or ungrateful, more like without a map. In researching this book, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to a woman named Rita, who spent 32 years as a hospital administrator, the person people called when something broke. She was needed every single day. 3 months after she retired, she was sitting on her porch, which is beautiful. She lives in San Rafael. And she couldn't remember what she had for lunch. And she handled a lot of details in her career. She was not depressed. She felt untethered. She was looking for her center. The framework that had held her identity together had been removed, and she didn't know how to put a new one into place. She said something that stuck with me. She said, I was so focused on earning the right to leave work that I forgot to build anything to leave work for. That moment, okay, now what? It's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of being human in a culture that never really bothered to prepare you for this. And here's what made this even more frustrating to me. The research says that happiness gets better in this era of life. Economists have tracked something called the U curve of happiness. Has anyone heard of this idea? The U curve of happiness, across dozens of countries, that life satisfaction follows a U shape. It actually dips in our 30s and 40s during the striving years, bottoms out in our late 40s, and then starts to climb again by the 60s and 70s. Many people report being happier than they were at age 35. So you're standing at the bottom of the U or climbing out of it. The culture is telling you the best years are behind you, but the data says the opposite. The stage that you're entering, that you're in, is statistically one of the happiest. But you have to build the conditions for that happiness. It doesn't arrive on its own. There's something else I want to name as I'm thinking about this. I call it the identity tax. So you spend decades building some identity as an adult. Parent, caretaker, VP of sales, nurse, teacher, architect. That identity told you who you were, what to wear, what time to wake up in the morning, what to talk about at parties. When that identity ends, something gets subtracted that you weren't expecting to lose. You can feel genuine nostalgia for something that you were also ready to leave. You can hate the 6 a.m. alarm and also grieve the structure that provided to you. Both things can be true. Here's how I notice the identity tax in myself right now at my age. I'll be with somebody who knew me in an older chapter of life, and I catch myself doing something a little strange, editing, shrinking a little bit, sucking in the parts of me, the parts that grew after the years of striving, because I'm not sure that they fit. And it's not because anybody asked me to, but because I've learned to stay inside certain lines. That's the identity tax at work. The people who navigate this stage best are the one who stop pretending that the loss isn't real and stop pretending that the newer version of themselves, the newer identity that they're building, is not a problem. As I talk to people, I hear that work is doing a lot more emotional labor than most of us realized. I'm not romanticizing the 8 a.m. conference call or the annual performance review, but work gave us a reason to get out of bed with a plan and a social world that showed up for us automatically. And a clear answer to the question, who am I, that didn't require a lot of introspection. And when those things fall away, the culture says, stay busy. Take up pickleball. Volunteer somewhere. Learn something. Which is notable because after a lifetime of mandatory busyness, the prescription for its end is more busyness. Except this time it's voluntary. We are not a culture that is comfortable sitting with the real question underneath all of this. The real question is, what actually matters to you? Not what keeps you occupied or what looks good in your annual Christmas letter. What matters? And that's what this whole conversation is about for me. If you want to thrive in this stage, not endure it, not just fill the hours, my research is telling me you need to do three things. None of them happen by accident. All three require intention. One, design your days. Because if you don't, your days will design you. And they don't have very good taste. Two, build belonging. Connection was once automatic. Now you have to build it intentionally. And three, stay purposeful. Purpose doesn't retire when you. And here's what I've learned. These three aren't separate projects. You design your days partly to create space for belonging. You build belonging partly by sharing purpose with other people. And you discover purpose partly due to the relationships that you invest in. They feed each other. Get one moving and the others start to shift. You know, in interviewing so many people, I realized the vision that most people carry into this stage of life goes something like, I will travel. I will go. I will finally do the things I never had time for. I will be magnificently content. And this vision lasts about 3 to 18 months. Because leisure is only pleasurable in contrast to non-leisure. Pure unstructured freedom with no purpose, with no project, no one depending on you, starts to feel less like liberation and a lot more like floating, like drifting. Or as I say to some of my friends who are planning to move to Portugal, Lisbon is not a life plan. This chapter needs design, not a rigid schedule, not a second career, not a plan that would impress former colleagues, rather conspicuous choices about what you want more of, what you want less of, and what actually belongs in your days. And when I say design, I mean something specific, actually looking at your calendar and asking yourself if it reflects what you say matters to you. Design can look like I'm having coffee with a friend on Tuesday mornings, and I'm protecting that time like it's a parent-teacher conference. It's more important. Design can look like I'm done with volunteer work that makes me feel resentful. I'm saying no to the things that I've done out of obligation for the past few years. Design can look like I have 3 hours every week when I'm working on something with my hands, building something, creating something. This is mine and it's non-negotiable. None of this requires any money. They're just all about conscious choices. The people who do best in this stage of life give themselves permission to have preferences, not shoulds, preferences. What do you actually like now? And then you build a life that includes more of that. Now, some of you did not get more freedom at this stage, you got less. You're managing aging parents still, grandchildren, partners, health, or some combination that eats most of your available hours. The design question doesn't disappear for you, it can transform you. The question becomes, in the time and energy that are actually mine, what do I want? Even if that time is small. So first, identify your non-negotiable time. Maybe it's your weekly morning. Maybe it's one afternoon a month. Name it, protect it. Not because you're selfish, but because you can't sustain caregiving from a place of complete depletion. Second, get specific. Don't say, I need a break. Say, I need a weekly tea with a friend, or I need to take a painting class. Specificity makes it real. Third, name it out loud to the people involved. I'm protecting Tuesday for myself. Here's why, and here's what I need from you. Most people respond to clarity and direct asks. Caring for yourself is not in conflict with caring for others. It's what makes caring for others sustainable. So throughout this talk, I'll just give you some prompts for reflection, and we'll have some time for sharing at the end of the talk. Maybe think about your answer to these questions. What do I want more of? Not what should I want, not what your kids think. What do you actually want? Depth, creativity, stillness, certain kinds of people, time outside, doing absolutely nothing productive? What do I want less of? Obligations that you didn't choose for yourself, conversations that drain you, things that you do purely out of inertia, people who deplete you, who diminish you. What belongs on my calendar now? Not what's always been there, not what others expect from you. What would you put there if you were starting from scratch? This sounds simple, but in talking with people, I hear how difficult it is. You spent 50 plus years making decisions based on what other people expected from you. And the answer to what do you want might not be immediately available. Behavioral economists have a word for this, by the way, status quo bias. We default to what we've always done, even when it's not working, because the familiar feels safer than the unknown. Your brain is wired to treat what I've been doing as the right answer, even when you know that it isn't. So the answer to what you want might not be immediately available. It's buried under decades of what was expected of you. But here's something concrete that might work for you. I like frameworks, by the way, practical frameworks. 3 steps. Notice, choose, build. Notice. For 1 week, pay attention. When do you feel lit up? When are you bored? When do you feel resentful? When do you lose track of time? Don't judge it, don't censor it, just notice it. 2, choose. Look at what showed up for you, what's repeated. That's your signal. Pick one thing that matters most right now. And number 3, build. Find or create one regular structure around that thing, a walking group, a class, a standing date, something with rhythm. Rhythm is what turns intention into reality. And if you're thinking now, hey, Steve, I'm 73. I've lived with intention my whole life. How do I think about this? Here's the trick. What would you choose if you had infinite permission? Not infinite time or money, but infinite permission to do what matters without having to justify it to anyone, including yourself. That's your starting. Here's something I learned about the cultural conversations that we have about forming friendships. You get two real windows in your life to find your people. Two. The first opens in your 20s, college, early career. You're surrounded by other people. We're also figuring it out. And friendships form almost by accident. Proximity does the work. The second window is now. After the kids launch, after the career stops defining your calendar, after all the situational friendships, the ones that were really about whose kid was on which soccer team, and then those friendships dissolve because the season ended, nobody scheduled a reunion. These years in between, the parenting years, researchers actually call that the interregnum. You know that word interregnum? It's a word that describes the gap between two reigns. When one king dies and the next king hasn't taken over yet, it's a holding pattern. Fits, doesn't it? We're surrounded by people, but not actually close to them. Calendars packed, hearts weirdly empty. And here's why building connection can be harder for people in the third. Everyone's calendar is full. You've accumulated more defenses. You've been disappointed. The bar is higher now because you actually have to like someone to be around them. And there's a thought lurking in the back of your mind that if you haven't found your people by now, maybe you're the problem. That's shame talking. That's not true. And for those of you, and I know that there are some of you out there thinking, I'm not a people person. Do I really need all this? Well, the research says connection is protective, but it doesn't prescribe how much or what kind. For some people, it's dinner club and a hiking group. For others, it's 3 deep friendships and a lot of valued alone time. What matters is that you're intentional about it, that you don't default to isolation by accident. Some of us treat friendship like a hobby. It's not. The research is stark. Loneliness is a health risk comparable to smoking. Real friendship, the kind where someone actually knows your mess, is physically protective of you. It lowers cortisol. It improves cognitive function. It keeps you alive longer. And yet we never let our physical health get as neglected as our friendship lives. You never say, I'll focus on exercise when things are settling down. But people say that about friendships all the time. You have to tend it. You have to reach out. You have to be the one who calls first. A lot of people wait for the right moment. There is no right moment. Call someone. Say, I've been thinking about you. I'd like to get together. The awkwardness lasts 30 seconds. And try out new gatherings. Show up once. Actually, show up twice. The first time is weird, meeting new groups of people. By the second time, you recognize a face. By the fourth time, you start to get a sense of belonging. But belonging takes more than just showing up on schedule. You have to go past pleasant. You have to ask real questions, give real answers. The rhythm gets you in the room, but the honesty is what keeps you going there. I found in myself that I sometimes find myself editing myself. training ourselves to be a certain way, to be appropriate, to not take up too much space in the room. And at this stage, that kills connection. Your realness is what's attractive to other people. So join something with a regular rhythm, a book club, a group, a hiking club, a spiritual community, something that meets repeatedly. And be willing to initiate. Some people will say no, some people will say yes. But you'll be amazed at how much it mattered that you asked. Somebody in the survey asked a question about dating and partnership, and I did some research on this. Do you know that there are more uncoupled people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s than at any point in history? The clarity that you bring now is actually an advantage because you know what matters and you know what you won't tolerate. For those of you who are recently uncoupled and feel sovereign for the first time, I want to honor that. Sovereignty after a long marriage is real and worth protecting. Your dogs and your friends, your family can be enough. And you're also allowed to stay open. You can feel sovereign and interested in connection at the same time. That's not conflicted, it's wisdom. And honestly, some of you are discovering for the first time that you actually like being alone. That's not lonely. That's freedom. Don't let anyone convince you that that's a problem. Okay, some more questions to reflect on for yourself. Who in your life brings out the truest version of you? The one that feels most like actually you, the one who makes you feel safe enough to be weird. Who do you want to know better? Someone you see regularly but have never gone deep with. Someone you've been meaning to call for a couple of years. And where are you waiting instead of participating? This is the one. This one. Waiting to be invited. Waiting until things settle down. The right moment doesn't tend to announce itself for us. Connection saves your life. Isolation ends it. Slowly, the research is clear on this. So the one thing I'm asking you to do after this talk, please, reach out to one person. Actually reach out. Send a text. Use the phone app on your phone. Send an email. One person. Just say, I was thinking about it. That's all. That one act is the beginning of the belonging that will carry you through this stage. I talk a bit about purpose because I've been thinking about this a lot for myself. Something I'm feeling certain of is that purpose doesn't retire when a career does. The human need to matter, to contribute, to show up for something beyond yourself doesn't expire at 60 or 65 or 75. If anything, it gets louder. Now, the cultural advice on this causes genuine harm, in my opinion. That advice is follow your passion. Find the thing that sets your soul on fire. That advice is well-intentioned, but not very useful. Most of us don't have one blazing passion sitting in a drawer, waiting to be pulled out. We have a range of things that matter to us in different ways. And find your passion implies that if you haven't located it yet, something is wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. Purpose is not found, it's built. Usually at the intersection of what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you find genuinely engaging. Some people discover a central purpose late in life that surprises everyone, including themselves. Some sustain happiness through a portfolio of purposes, reading plus gardening plus friendship. Not one grand mission. Both paths are completely legitimate. And when I say purpose, some people think purpose needs to be a Nobel Prize winning mission. It doesn't have to be. The person who shows up every week to mentor someone younger who doesn't have anyone, changing the world, changing someone's world. Purpose. My mom volunteered at an elementary school as a reading tutor. My dad went and visited with people who were older than he was, people who hadn't heard his army stories before. It's a good thing for the whole family. It's good for all of us. The person who hosts the dinner that wouldn't happen without them. They understand that bringing people together matters. Purpose. The person who actually listens to people who don't often feel heard. People know that when they're talking to this person, that they matter. Purpose. What these have in common is they're all chosen. They all involve attention. They all create a sense of competence and contribution. Purpose doesn't need to be grand. It needs to be real to you. And here's something worth sitting with. What if your purpose is simply showing up as yourself? Not to accomplish anything, but to bring your realness to the people around you. Purpose. One of you submitted a question that I've really been sitting with for a while now. I'm going to paraphrase it. I've lived with intention my whole life. Now at 72, I'm trying to create an intention to allow more walks, more travel, doing nothing, reading romance novel, crafts. But it's hard to let go of the idea that intention has to mean being productive. How do you set an intention that isn't about producing something? Thank you to whomever answered that, asked that really deep question. A lot of us were raised with a clear message that intention means productivity, set goals, achieve things, create, build, produce. That wasn't wrong. That served you. That built careers and families and lives that mattered. But this stage invites a different kind of intention. What if intention means I intend to take 3 walks this week? I intend to notice the light on the water. I intend to read romance novels. The guilt about doing nothing is the only thing that you need to let go of. Something happened to me recently. I'm standing in my kitchen holding my phone, staring at it like it's an artifact from an alien civilization. I had gotten up from the living room and on the way to the kitchen completely forgot the reason why I needed to go to the kitchen. So I did what any calm, rational adult would do. I Googled signs of early cognitive decline, which, by the way, I do not recommend. It's like asking about a weird mole at midnight. You go in hoping for reassurance, and you come out mentally labeling family heirlooms. But I found something interesting. Scientists found that brain aging doesn't look like a candle slowly melting, which is the metaphor that most of us carry around. Not one smooth decline, sharper shifts at specific points. Around 34, around 60, around 78. The shift is real, but what's important to take away from that is it's not a diagnosis. It's a weather report. Conditions are changing. Doesn't mean that you're done. So back to the question. What are you postponing now? What idea do you keep circling back to? What would you do if you dropped the assumption that you missed your window? It's still not too late. I want to talk to you about a box in my garage. Maybe you have a box like this, cardboard, my handwriting on the side. It's labeled office stuff, dated, I'm guessing, from 2005. I've moved it 3 times across 4 addresses without ever opening it. I keep moving it because getting rid of it requires knowing exactly what I'm done with, which is that, as it turns out, is a harder question than do I need this mouse pad still? Remember mouse pads? A lot of us are carrying boxes like that, roles, identities, versions of ourselves moved from address to address because letting go means answering the same question. The cultural script says, reinvent yourself. There's that word again, reinvent. That word is everywhere. Books, articles, pitches from life coaches with suspiciously white teeth. My problem with it is that reinvention implies that who you are right now is not the right answer. Leave 50 years at the door, pick up a blank canvas, become someone new. And that's not what people think, in my opinion. I think what most people need is integration. Integration. Take the best of who you are, the competence, the judgment, the skills that only decades of real life can build, and bring them somewhere new. Not starting over, but evolving. The box doesn't have to stay sealed, and it doesn't have to go to the dump. Open it. Decide what still fits for you. Integrate. Let the rest go. I want to talk a little bit about grief, because your third involves real losses. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I've spoken with plenty of people who are aging in a healthy way and they've lost all their friends. But there's another kind of grief that I want to talk about. I had a friend for nearly 30 years. We went through our second third together. Bad first jobs, little kids, mortgage years. We were the kind of friends that didn't need to explain the backstory because we were the backstory. Over time, we drifted, we got back in touch, and then I had a realization that I didn't really want to have. My life had moved somewhere that his life hadn't. One lunch near the beach in San Francisco, we covered all the old categories. We even laughed at each other, and still the conversation kind of felt like we were operating from a script for a show that had been canceled. You know, the hard part wasn't anger. You know, anger gives you somewhere to go. But the hard part was sadness, because I wasn't only grieving the friendship, I was kind of grieving the part of myself that lived inside that relationship. You know, what I'm learning is that some losses don't arrive with drama. You know, nobody brings you a casserole for a friendship that withers over time, that just quietly reflates, but it's real, and you deserve to name it. This stage may require you to let go of some roles. It does not ask you to disappear. The people who do this well often feel more themselves than ever. Not because nothing bad happened to them, but because they're still here, still reaching, still becoming. Okay, I've given you a lot of information so far. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. But I want to give you a real moment with these 3 questions. You can answer for yourself. What has surprised you most about this stage of your life? What has become more important to you? And what do you want to live more intentionally? if you'd like to share after this conversation with other people or with me, I would love to hear it. So, this is my message to you. This is the whole talk. You're not done becoming. You're not done contributing something that matters. You're not done connecting with people who need you. And you're not done living with intention, if you want, whatever that means to you now. You have more time. You have more to give. You have more to discover about yourself. And the people I've interviewed who are thriving in this stage, they don't describe having less energy. They describe it different, more focused, more chosen, pointed at things that actually matter to them instead of scattered across obligations that they inherited. That's renewed energy. The person that you're going to become in the next period of time in this era might be more interesting than anyone that you've been so far. That's not guaranteed. It needs design. It needs belonging. And it needs purpose. And it requires you to choose. It's your choice. It requires you to do the work. But the capacity is there, the time is there, and you are there. And you are not done. Before I open it up for discussion, I want to tell you a little bit more about the work that Gary said that I'm doing, because it connects directly to everything that I've talked about today. I wrote a book called Your Third Third, as Gary mentioned. It'll be out this fall. The subtitle is A 12-Week Guide to Redesigning Life After 50. And the simplest way I can describe it is this. It's the field manual that I wish existed when I was standing in my, okay, now what moment. It's not a book that you read and set down. It's a book that you work through. 12 weeks. Each week covers a different domain of this stage. How you spend your time, your finances, your identity when the wolves fall away, your social world, your relationships, your vision for the years ahead, and eventually your legacy. The methodology behind it comes from my mentor, Ken Kramars, who lived here in Kentfield. Ken ran a children's summer camp for 35 years. And one of his central principles that he taught was people support the things they help to create. People support the things they help create. Hand someone a finished plan and they follow it halfway. Involve them in building it, and then they commit to it. So the book doesn't hand you answers. It gives you a structure and then asks you to build something inside of it, because the only design that will actually hold is the design that you build yourself. It works solo, with a partner, or in a small group. I've used drafts of this in workshops and facilitated programs in community settings. And if what we talked about resonates with you, that's the natural next step. You'll be able to find it at yourthirdthird.com, but I publish the ideas that I'm learning in a weekly free Substack. If you have a phone and you know how to use a QR code, you can take a picture of that and it'll take you to the website that you can subscribe to the Substack newsletter, and then you'll be on my mailing list so that when the book is published, you'll have an opportunity to read it, I hope, and use it. Okay, now it really is your turn. Sharing, questions, pushback, things that landed. I think Larry's going to walk around with a microphone. Thank you, Larry, and got a few minutes for questions.
Yes, and please wait until you get the microphone to say your questions so that people online can hear you as well as people in the room. So just raise your hand.
Just a quick question, Steve. I find that one of the things that holds people up from realizing their potential is thinking about how old they are. You know, they get caught up in what 70 means and what 80 means and the perceptions that others must have of them because now they're 80 or more or less. How do you help people get over that chronological age and live for who they are at whatever age they are?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. There are people who, die at 60 or younger, and there are people who live to 90 or older. So there's no better evidence of that than the longevity question. How long you will live is not a factor of your chronology, it's a factor of your genetics and your lifestyle. So I would encourage them to think about what they want to do with the years that they have rather than the limitations that they're experiencing now or might experience in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So I belong to a running club a local running club actually, and our most active, and in fact, we have some national runners, are our 70s and 80s teams. So just to let you know that you can kind of do whatever at whatever age. And the great thing is I'm like an age group winner in but sometimes I'm the only one competing in my group. So anyway, I don't know whether I've never wanted to be an age group winner, but so I am.
Congratulations.
But I think one of the things that I'm finding, I'm now about almost 2 years out from being no longer working for another company. And I did a little consulting, but I really have been very much facing all these questions, untethered, things like that. Do I go back and try and, do some volunteer work in that area where I used to? And that hasn't been so, I don't know, satisfying or something. Or even like I find out, do I really want to put all this effort in, at this redoing all that? But what I'm finding right now is I'm giving myself permission to be uncomfortable. And I think it kind of gets to this grief and so on, things I could do better now. Well, maybe I did all I could do in that area and it's time to be a different person. So just some thoughts, and very much appreciate that you looked into this.
Would you give the name of the running club to anybody who might want to join?
Oh, sure.
Might be competing with you in your category, but
It's actually Tamalpa Runners.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
They're a 50. We're just celebrating 50 years in Marin. So
Remember that club.
we welcome everybody.
I want to honor the fact that while you don't necessarily have all the answers, I can hear you asking the right questions. And we have to start with the deeper, meaningful questions. Not just who am I now, but who do I want to become? And once you get more clarity in that, then it becomes easier to design the life backwards from the person that you want to be. And also give yourself permission, and I love that word, to change over time. It's okay to start on a course and then decide this is not for me and be just as intentional about what you want to try next. We encourage that in children all the time. Why can't we encourage that in ourselves?
So, Steve, who do you want to become? Where are you? Where are you aiming? What is your vision for you?
Oh, thank you for that question.
What was the question?
I should point out, so the question was, who do I want to become? What am I aiming for? By the way, I should point out this is my mother-in-law. In case that changes your context for the question. Vivian, I ask myself that question frequently. Today, I'm really interested in helping people in this liminal period of their life between the second third and the third third. And a lot of people get hung up on the on the term third. Is it 30 years? Is it 25 years? It doesn't matter. This is a new era. And where my passion is right now is in talking to people about how to solve this epidemic of loneliness that scientists tell us is pervasive in our culture. And I think part of the antidote for that is to create ways of belonging and aging with thoughtfulness and intention over time. And it's a choice. Some people are perfectly happy to retire to a golf course, and that's their plan. And for those people, if it brings them satisfaction and joy, wonderful. But my goal is to help the people who are not quite so certain, who are asking themselves the same questions I'm asking for myself as I enter my third. Thank you. I think we've gone a little bit over time. Do we have maybe time for one more question or two questions? Oh, comments on Zoom. Can somebody read maybe one of the, oh. Hello? Hello to people on Zoom. Oh, contact information for me is steve@yourthirdthird.com. Thank you for the question. I'm glad to see the sound was working an hour ago. Thank you. Great. Well, I'll stick around after the talk here and happy to have conversations. And I encourage you to ask these kinds of questions to each other and share with one another. Thank you very kindly. I appreciate it.
Good to come.